Today's gospel actually took place during Holy Week. It happened after Jesus' triumphal entry, his preaching at the beginning of the week in the temple, and when he cleared it out of the animals and the money changers and all those that were in the temple. And the chief priests had come to him and said, "Who do you think you are?" And Jesus told them this parable. And typically, in the Middle East, they would say, which son respected his father? And they would answer the second, the one that said yes and walked away. But Jesus turned it around and said, who did the will of the Father? And they answered correctly. At that, Jesus said, was John the Baptist a prophet? Now, the chief priests didn't want the people to rise up against them and say, no, he wasn't. And they certainly didn't want to say, yes, he was, because they paid no attention to him. So they said, we don't know. So Jesus said, the one who did the will of his Father was like the prostitutes, the sinners, and everybody who followed John the Baptist that asked for forgiveness from sin and tried to do the will of God. And the lesson for us today is that all of us are called to follow God, to follow the love that God gives us, to give the love and respect that God expects to everyone with whom we come in contact with. That means, unlike the chief priests who stayed in their temple and looked out for themselves and were more concerned with power, we should be concerned with being selfless, giving of ourselves, giving of the love that God has, giving it to others. That is the message of today's gospel, to give. And remember, it is in Holy Week that Christ challenged these people and told them this. He knew he was to be executed at the end of the week, and he still did the will of his Father. And the ultimate message there is that the hardest things in the world to do are not always the easiest. They sometimes bring about very difficult consequences.